Welcome back, everybody, to another Saturday night live stream. And tonight we are talking about X-Men 97 and the controversy surrounding the recent departure of the showrunner just days before the show premieres. And how will that impact Arcade1up? All that and more right after this. Hey guys, welcome back. And once again, if you enjoy this, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos, subscribe, ring that bell for notification, all that jazz. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to say what we are going to talk about is going to touch on some controversial / political issues. So I want to be upfront about that. I want to make sure everybody knows that I don't want any BS in the chat. I don't, we're not here to bash anybody or how they live their lives or anything like that. We're here to simply talk about the controversy surrounding this show and the dismissal of the showrunner and how that might impact Arcade1up. That's it. So try to keep it cordial, and I know you guys will because you're all gentlemen and scholars. So, for those of you who aren't aware, and X-Men 97, right, is a direct sequel being released on Disney Plus to the X-Men animated series of the 90s. And this is not a reboot. It is not a remake. It is a direct sequel. And yeah, hat tip to Jason, the king of moderators on YouTube. Morons are never an option, and I totally agree there. So let's talk about first a little bit about the show itself, and I just want to share an article with you that goes through comments from the showrunner and the former creator of X-Men the Animated Series and his take on the reboot, or the sequel of the show. I keep saying it's not a reboot, but there we go. Okay, first up, and let me get where I can actually read this thing. Okay, this is from Game Rant, and this was let's see. This is basically about his dismissal, so I might have jumped ahead one. So I'm just going to read this real quick here. It says X-Men 97 showrunner Bo DeMeo was fired by Marvel Studios, leading to speculation of the reasons behind the sudden dismissal. Fans question if DeMeo's OnlyFans account was the reason for his firing, with reports that Disney executives were finding the content creepy. So that's the, essentially the thumbnail in this video, right, was reference to DeMeo's OnlyFans account. It says, despite the controversy, excitement for X-Men 97 remains high, with fans eager to see how the animated series will fit into the MCU. X-Men 97 showrunner and head writer Bo DeMeo was fired by Marvel Studios without explanation. Now a new report may provide some insight into why DeMeo was suddenly fired just before X-Men premiere date. In addition to his work on X-Men 97, DeMeo had worked for Marvel Studios as a writer on Moon Knight. If you didn't catch that show, it was another Disney Plus TV show, and reportedly has been working on drafts on Blade. He has completed writing X-Men 97 Season 2 and was reportedly discussing ideas for a third season with the writing team, making his sudden firing more surprising to fans. Yeah. So that's the main reason I wanted to share that one, is simply just to give you the background on his firing and the rumors that maybe it had something to do with his OnlyFans account. And we will come back to that in a minute. And There we go. So let's step back. This is a year ago, right? As we first start hearing details around the show, and let's hear from DeMeo himself about the show itself and why some of the controversy surrounding the show is stirring some of these rumors, right? So, X-Men 97 executive producer Bo DeMeo reveals series stories informed by his experience as a black gay man. And of course, if you know X-Men and you know why Stan Lee created X-Men, there's some of that makes a lot of sense. It was always about the racial struggle in the 60s for Stan Lee and shining a light on that. And so let's get into this a little deeper. X-Men 97 executive producer Bo DeMeo recently revealed the series story is informed by his experience as a gay black man. During Marvel's X-Men 60 Uncanny Years live virtual event, DeMeo discussed the upcoming animated series and explained how the show came to fruition. As part of the discussion, DeMeo said, come up with a pitched it to Kevin Feige, and you know him and Brad could not have been more supportive and also just encouraging to make sure we got it right. I think one of my favorite parts was like they were truly interested in like what my experience as a black gay man was and how it was going to inform the story we were telling. And that to them was like, that is how we're going to make this authentic, he revealed. DeMeo then explained because really what you're talking about with X-Men, I don't care what your religion, your nationality, your sex, your gender, you walk into a room full of people and you've gone, oh my gosh, there is no one in here like me. And I think that is ultimately what X-Men is trying to get at. He went on, and so then I went into the desert for about 2 weeks, came up with the entire first season, and then came back. And, you know, we got Eric Lewald and Julia Lewald. Those were the original creators of the series in the 90s. And Larry Houston to come aboard and be like, am I screwing this up? Such amazing creative partners, parents, I call them, just moral and creative support. And then we've just assembled a great team of really amazing directors and artists and storyboard artists and writers to just get this thing right and really drill down to what I think the X-Men always going to be about, which is just, you know, we talk a lot about the dream is social acceptance and it's social justice, he said. DeMeo elaborated, it is, but I think that can sometimes make certain people feel alienated. And for me, it's always going to come down to, I think, the X-Men and what we're going to be trying to do with the series is talking about the power of empathy and how it can kind of heal these wounds that turn people against each other. That things like racism and bigotry don't just exist, he continued. There's a reason behind it, that empathy can kind of help us connect and build those bridges where we can actually say, hey, we are all different, but we have these things that still connect us. It's been an incredible journey, and I will always just go back to Larry, Eric, and Julia just being this kind of pioneers who told stories and yada, yada, yada. So, you know, there's just a glimpse, you know, DeMeo here really wants to stick from the sounds of to the original theming around why Stan Lee created these characters. And obviously he's talking about bringing them forward to a modern age, which is to be expected. That's some of what Disney obviously has been really focused on in all these, you know, the last 5+ years, really probably 10+ years when they're going back to all these franchises and doing these things. So then we start getting into our, you know, fast forward 9 months as we get closer to this show actually airing. We start seeing glimpses of our first real controversies around the show. And that starts with, make sure I get the right one here. This X-Men 97 showrunner confirms Disney Plus series will portray Morph as non-binary. Right. So here here they've taken Changeling, a shapeshifter, and basically they're going back and trying to, uh, you know, retcon his personality in the show. Again, who's a big fan of Morph? I don't know that there is any. So I don't know that it's a huge deal to anybody that they've done this, but it's certainly not what the character was in the 90s. I mean, he always reverted in his when he wasn't shape shifting into something advantageous at the time, or playing a joke on somebody, he always was in his male form, for whatever that means. Again, I don't know that it's a huge deal, but a lot of people found this controversial, that to some extent, I don't think it's as controversial as some people would like to make it be, but that they were going to update this character to be um, non-binary as it was. And as we get into this and hear why the decision was to do that, I don't know. I'll get to it when we get to it. I guess I think I think the comments are interesting, and I'll just leave it at interesting for now. In the first confirmed change being made to the fan favorite incarnation of Marvel's Merry Band of Mutants, X-Men 97 showrunner Bo DeMeo has revealed that unlike the original series, the upcoming revival will portray the mutant shapeshifter Morph as a non-binary individual. One of the comments I did want to make at this point, you notice in all these scenes, Morph is always in his male form. But if you look on the Arcade1up cabinet, and really in all the X-Men 97 art, they have Morph defaulting into I don't know, I guess you can call it a non-binary form, in non-gender based form, all gray, still humanoid like, but no, not male or female, just nothing, which is a big departure from the original character. This change was first confirmed by DeMeo during a series-centric interview given to Empire Magazine, which will be out in April. Providing brief teases into the approach of the series, took in writing each of the series' principal mutant castmates. When it came to Morph, the showrunner confirmed to the Empire, as recapped by the outlets Helen O'Hara, that this is a lighter take on the character, who is non-binary and has an interesting buddy relationship. I think this will be interesting to see how they play this out. Has an interesting buddy relationship with Wolverine. In the original series, their relationship was really one of bros, right? Always screwing with each other. Typical kind of bromance or bro relationship. And so you can't help but wonder if they're taking this, kind of more modern woke stance on the character, if this quote unquote interesting buddy relationship becomes one of, one more uncomfortable, that probably doesn't really belong in a children's show, but we'll see. Hopefully they just stick to the original, and it is still that kind of joking stuff. But unsurprisingly, this presents a significant change to the character of Morph, but both as originally portrayed in the original Marvel comics and in the original X-Men animated series. Born Kevin Sidney, the mutant known as Morph, has, as his name implies, possessed the mutant gift of cellular level shapeshifting. Though depicted as a through and through villain in the comic book form, on the small screen, Morph was initially introduced as a proper member of the X-Men in the team's pilot episode, Night of the Sentinels, before being killed in the same episode by a surprise attack carried out by a group of Sentinels. But in the typical comic book fashion, Morph's death proves to be anything but, as the mutant leader is later revealed to not only be rescued from the attack by none other than Mr. Sinister, blah, 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 blah. There's never been. And well, yeah. So the rest I wanted to talk about is in the next article. So these are all spread out over so many different news stories. It's kind of crazy. If you can even call this website news stories. and then we'll get to the meat of this here. So X-Men the Animated Series creator defends the decision. So this is in response to the controversy that was swirling around YouTube and other websites about Morph being changed into non-binary for the show. This is where I think you'll find what, this is where I will comment when we get there on what I found. I don't know. I'll say controversial for me. More like offensive in my opinion, but we'll get there. X-Men the Animated Series creators defend the decision to make Morph non-binary in X-Men 97. The word non-binary is the same as the word shapeshifter. So I think this is, yeah, non-binary equals shapeshifter in their minds. So this read of Morph's character was offered by X-Men the Animated Series creator Eric Lewald. Love these ads jumping the screen around. His wife and writer Julia Lewald and director Larry Houston, all three of whom returned to provide their creative input to the reboot. It's not a reboot, it's a continuation. During a recent interview given to Variety in promotion of X-Men 97's rapidly approaching release date, pressed for their thoughts on the backlash to this changing of Morph's character, in particular the fact that many critics felt that the move was done for nothing more than social media brownie points, the trio unanimously pushed back on the ground that the mutant's new gender identity was already inherent in his power set. For me, the word non-binary is the same as the word shapeshifter, argued Houston. Every character that can change from one gender to another or from one human to animal, that's just another word for shapeshifter to me. Yeah. Then it goes into some episodes where he was trying to capture or trick Wolverine when he had turned evil. He pretended to be Jean Grey and tried to lure him in as evidence of Morph being non-binary. But the point here to me is, like, here you've got these Marvel, I call them legends, I guess, original creators of the X-Men 97 animated series. And here they are. They think they're, I'm going to say typical white liberal fashion, not to try to offend anybody, but that's, atypical, right? They think they're running out there. They're going to be good social justice warriors for the cause. And they're going to take this character and instead of just saying or creating a unique character, right? They're going to take the lazy way out. Can't create a new character that fits that mold. They're going to take the lazy way out, take an existing character, change it up, because in their minds, the first thing they think of when they think of a trans person is a shapeshifter. I mean, come on. I don't know why, I don't know if they're twisting themselves in a knot or if they're just bigoted in that way. I don't get it. But it's just par for the course, right? Out there to make the world safe, and they're really the ones that, when they do that, reveal their bigotry, in my opinion. But all that is to say, a lot of people are out there putting the rumors that DeMeo is dismissed for yet another reason, because of the controversy surrounding his sexual orientation, and as if that in modern day is a controversy, or the controversy surrounding Morph being now non-binary. So you have now essentially two different reasons on why people think maybe this is why DeMeo got fired. So really what we had just a couple days ago, in fact, it may have been yesterday or late Thursday, an insider who has broken many news around this show, especially the firing itself, came forward with another interesting whistleblower from within Disney, which is likely and plausibly, when you hear the reason, a more likely outcome of why DeMeo was dismissed from Disney. Again, DeMeo heavily involved with Disney, worked on Moon Knight, was working heavily on Blade, which is going to be awesome. Love the guy that's starring in that. Ever since he was in the 1400 many moons ago, he's a fantastic actor, and I would love to see him as Blade, but that show seems to be cursed and can't just get off the ground. But here we go. This was reported by, what is this, Fandom Wire, and I'm using this link rather than the source because the source's website requires you to pay for access. So we're not going to go there. We're going to use this one instead. It says, he was an absolute nightmare to deal with. X-Men 97 creator Beau DeMayo's OnlyFans exploration wasn't the reason behind his sudden firing, according to Insider. The truth behind Beau DeMayo's sudden dismissal from X-Men 97 just may have been seemingly revealed. And I'm not going to read this whole article. I'm going to scroll down to the quote. And it says, DeMeo is a nice guy. This is the quote from the insider whistleblower on this. DeMeo is a nice guy, but impossible to deal with. Like truly an absolute nightmare to deal with on a daily basis. He's been really annoying them, Marvel leadership, for a while now. And it has nothing to do with the fact that there's a lot of diversity and LGBTQ stuff in X-Men. It's just that he's really prickly and difficult to work with. So there you go. In all likelihood, he's fired because he's just an asshole. Again, Disney hasn't confirmed anything, so I still won't take that to the bank. There could be something, to be so heavily involved in all these projects and just dismissed, like, not like, if he's such an asshole, like, why not wait a week and a half and dismiss him after the premiere? It seems like the timing is really, really suspect. How does a guy so heavily involved with Marvel in all these different projects over many years get dismissed less than a week before his show premieres? Very strange. So I'm going to fathom the guess that this isn't the end of the story, and it's likely going to get worse. We may find out something really bad, or maybe it does come back to just the OnlyFans thing. But I don't think that was a secret. I think that was well known by a lot of people, but maybe some executive in Marvel didn't know about it. I highly doubt it, as Video Game Vegas says here, right? Disney wouldn't have fired DeMeo for his sexuality. I agree, that would have nothing to do with it. They didn't hire him. They didn't hire him for his talent. They hire him to check a box. Yeah, I'm not, who knows? We'll see. I'm going to reserve judgment. I enjoyed Moon Knight quite a bit. I may be the only one, but I thought Moon Knight was a pretty good show. Definitely a different take on the character than what they are in the comic. Twisted to be more modern, right? But I still thought it was a good show. I thought it was entertaining. But I know I'm in the minority on that. Most people didn't like it. So the point is, so you have all this controversy around DeMeo, around the show, and here's Arcade1up. Their only cab announced and confirmed for 2024, which is currently up for pre-order, as you guys all know, and set to be released early next month. The show now is in the crosshairs of all this controversy. You have potentially a disastrous announcement if Disney ever comes out and says why he was fired. Dear Lord, could it be something far worse than anybody's thinking? If it is, that's really going to be bad news for Arcade1up. Like, if you hear suddenly DeMeo's getting arrested or God knows what, sued, who knows other. Again, I'm not trying to put any rumors out there because I have no idea, but it just seems the timing is very strange, very unusual. They just had the premiere and like everybody was there. Of course, not him, like the red carpet premiere, not the actual release of the show, which I believe is on March 20th. So very strange. And Arcade1up, wrapped up in this thing could really be looking at whether you're a fan of the art, fan of the show, fan of the games, could be looking at being stuck with a cab that will not sell because the controversy around the show. If the show comes out and is a, you know, not close enough to the original series and is a bunch of political garbage, that's not going to be good. But now, if you have some worse controversy surrounding the showrunner's dismissal, that could be really, really bad. And so, that's why I asked the poll. That's why I threw the poll up, right? And I put it in the title of the show: is Arcade1up just completely incompetent, or are they cursed? You know, of course, are they playing 4D chess? I want to know from you. Of course, they're not playing 4D chess. I think we all know that, but who knows? Maybe they'll come out later this year and surprise us with a whole line of all new titles that we just didn't know. And they were being super quiet because they're working hard on releasing a bunch of really killer new cabs that we're all going to love them for. I doubt it, because if that were the case, you might have had some cheerleading from Travis and others around that. But uh, anyway, we'll we'll see. Number Squid. Uh, I want Golden Tee Deluxe. Well, you won't get a deluxe, but it sounds like you're going to get a Golden Tee XL or a Golden Tee New Wave Toys. Who knows? So what do you guys think? I mean, seriously, I think, where are we at in this poll? 72% say they're incompetent, 6% say they're cursed. Wow, 22% are very optimistic. Says Arcade1up is playing 4D chess. Yeah, I hope so. I'm going to go back and read here some of your quotes to see what you guys are saying about it, as I was reading a bunch of articles. Says, yep, James needs a timeout. Says, enjoying the camo bikini. Friends of Humanity. Thor KC. Incompetent is what competent people call morons. Video Game Vegas, such BS. And of course, the Nethers. I'm confused with all this. I guess I'm just old. Yeah, I mean, it's, it is a generational thing, right? You've got Gen Z really in control of all these properties, Gen Z and millennials, and then you have, Gen Xers that were in charge of these properties back in the day, wanting to be all hip and social justicey, so they all bend to the whims of TikTok, which is interesting. Now TikTok's on the verge of being banned. It's not for me, I guess. I don't know if is that the show or the Arcade1up. Honestly, probably neither are for me. I canceled my Disney Plus subscription because they've only made really, Andor was phenomenal. It's adult Star Wars, which I enjoyed. I think, the few episodes of, what is it, Boba Fett series that weren't about Boba Fett, that were about Luke training Baby Yoda, post spoiler warning, those were really cool. I think second season of Mandalorian, part of the first season, were pretty good. Third season was terrible. Pretty much every other show they've put out have been pretty blah. Certainly the Marvel shows have been kind of pointless. Just been kind of disappointed with everything Disney Plus has put out there. They're either crapping on it or just making garbage to throw it out there. Everything from National Treasure to now X-Men 97, right? They're just trying to ruin everything they touch on purpose, it seems like. Indiana Jones, Star Wars. So Indiana Jones wasn't terrible, it just wasn't good either. What is Morph turned into a Nazi? Wasn't Walt Disney a Nazi sympathizer? I don't know if he was. I know, Jack Kennedy, or It's not Jack. What's Kennedy's father's name? I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know he was, you know, basically if you were a Democrat in the 30s, you were all Nazi sympathizers. They really loved that stuff. But, you know, they learned, hopefully. The whole storyline of shapeshifters is that they can change their identity, isn't it? This is nothing new concept except the preferred terminology. I do think obviously shapeshifters can become whatever they want, but I think uh, when you're talking, you're using a politically charged terminology, right? Shapeshifter is considered I guess an X-Men, it would be considered a mutation. But in other sci-fi, shapeshifters are a species. You know, and so yeah, I mean, obviously you could say, hey, that's part of it, but you know, I wouldn't recommend going around calling trans people shapeshifters. I don't think that could be any more offensive to them, but I'll leave that up to them to respond to. But you know, I uh I'll just say this. I think if you were going to do that, one, it's not original, right? It's not an original idea. They were beat to the punch by share the audio here, right? By Generation V. You guys haven't seen this character. This is um, I guess you can call it non-binary, but it is definitely not non-binary. This character has the shape-shifting abilities and can shapeshift between a male and female version of themselves. This is an interesting character. It's a new character. It's developed character. The show itself is kind of mid, but the character development on this character is rather interesting. Why they change when they change, what form they take in certain situations. It's well developed, it's well thought out. And guess what? It's new. It's a new character. They didn't take an old character and retcon it for a modern age. They wrote something new. And yeah, I mean, obviously there are shapeshifters before, but there are all different kinds of characters before. There's not really anybody super original in X-Men either. They're all takes on other mythical characters from the past. So here's how somebody would do a modern character and actually take the time to do it correctly. And this videos course compilation was put together by All Powers Breakdown. I don't know the channel, but wanted to make sure I gave them a shout out and credit because they have the best clip of this character compilation put together to show different transitions throughout. But my point is you can have modern characters that meet modern sensibilities and you can do them well without taking the cheap, lazy, easy way out to try to score points and claim you're diverse when you couldn't even be bothered to think beyond the norm. So you could have left Morph exactly as that character was and introduced another shapeshifter, a brand new character that maybe starts getting morphed to think differently about the world around them. But they don't do that. They just get lazy like they always do. Cheap box checking is Disney's name these days. They put nothing, absolutely nothing into their work. They just crap out more stuff at full speed and hope people will eat it up. And speaking of eating it up, Thumper Squid says, I'll have the club sandwich hold de mayo. Love the dad jokes. And Jason says, don't be prickly. I want to hear Disney confirm he's an asshole. Me too. While they are at it, maybe they should change Cyclops' name to differently abled person who is visually impaired. Wolverine discovers the cure for okay then. Moon Knight was okay until they introduced his female replacement at the end of the show. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't know the Moon Knight character much. I know he's a basically a clone of Batman that they wanted to, have that similar character. Disney and Marvel steal each other's characters all the time. When they brought it to the screen, obviously, it wasn't anything like Batman. I thought the schizophrenia part was pretty interesting take. I actually enjoyed that. That was kind of cool. Um, I thought, like I said, I thought it was a good show. It was certainly imaginative, better than some of the other crap that's been on Disney Plus. Um, Quite frankly, the first one, the one with Scarlet Witch and Vision, like, it was kind of cool the way they started it as the TV sitcoms throughout the ages. But then when they wrapped that show up, they basically just shit on everything that happened on it when they go into the next Doctor Strange movie. She supposedly at the end of that show realized she had turned evil and wasn't going to be evil and ran off to think about it. But then Doctor Strange comes and she's evil still. Didn't make any sense. So they ruined that whole show. And of course, we've got the sequel to that one coming up, unless it's been canceled like everything else. Um, Video Game Vegas says Thumper Squid Golden Tea, the Mutant Edition. Who knows? It says from your lips to God's ears. Is that a purple cat? 76% incompetent. So there's a chance, indeed, Jason. Video Game Vegas again. I don't think it's a generation thing. I think it's a malicious thing. That's why I stopped watching anything new Star Wars or Marvel. I don't disagree with this. I do think that there's an agenda, right? It's not fully about just acceptance, right? It's about tearing down traditional culture. And I don't traditional is a bad way to say it, because that's, I don't want it to sound like traditional values or something. It's about taking staples of the past culture and destroying them in order to build new things, which I don't think you need to do. You can build new things. At one point in time, Star Wars was new and it took over older things, right? Like our parents' generations really loved Westerns. Their parents' generations, who knows what they liked, And so it's like our kids like other stuff. It takes new content, new creators. This is, I think, why Americans right now are so enamored with anime and manga, is that you have new original characters being created in Japan. They're not getting hung up on a bunch of political nonsense, though you'll still see a bunch of diverse characters, but they're tell new stories. They're not out there just taking old shit and ruining it and trying to retell it, because it's not even like remakes. Certainly we grew up with a ton of movies getting remade that our parents watched, Gone in 60 Seconds, things like that. Like there's a ton, right? But they did them, whether, they didn't try to destroy the source material. They maybe were inspired by it or even kept it almost identical. Now, when they redo something and reboot something, they just completely jack it all up, because they're not just trying to tell a good story and modernize it. They're trying to destroy the old one. But my kids, for example, I don't know if you guys know. So I have 2 toddlers in addition to some older kids. One's 4 and one's about to turn 3. And we signed them up for this Dolly Parton book club thing through the library, where each kid gets a book every month for free. It's kind of cool that Dolly Parton does this stuff. But we got the first book, and the first book in the series is The Little Engine That Could. What a great story, right? Everybody knows The Little Engine That Could. It's a story about overcoming adversity. You have this train that's got to get up this hill. It's so steep. They just can't make it. They roll back down. They try again, and they try again, and they try again, never giving up until they finally make it. And wow, what a sense of accomplishment that was. So great. Great moral, great story. I sit down to read this to my kids, and what I realized pretty quickly, this is not the little engine that could, despite the name being called the little engine that could. Right away, the story is of this train that is a female train trying to carry toys to the next town. The train's just going by and gets to this hill and just can't make it up the hill. Oh no, just can't make it. So they give up. Like, oh, can't do it. We're just stuck here. And along comes a big freight train, right? And it's a man, this man train. And nope, not going to help this little female train that wants to bring all the toys to all the nice little boys. Nope, don't have time for that. See you later. I'm off. Then comes another diesel engine, another big man train. Again, doesn't have time to help the poor little female train with all the toys and all the disappointed boys and girls. But then along comes the traditional looking, blue train from the original book, but it's a female this time. And she sees the distressed other female train stuck where she is. And this female train latches onto the other one and pulls them up the hill with no problem, gets them to the other side. The end of the story. Like, what is this trash? What's the moral here? The guys, men, when they see a woman in distress, aren't going to help, that they don't care about little children and little children getting their toys. There was no moral to this story at all. It was just man hating disguised as a traditional book that had a great moral story that every children should know. Don't give up. Keep trying. The more you try, eventually you'll succeed. Try again. And instead it was this woke nonsense. And so I'm looking at the book and the title, and there it is in little small print that I didn't see, inspired by the little engine that could. So they took the name, the little engine that could, and then new authors came in and wrote a book inspired by the original one. And it was just garbage, just pure garbage. Now, thankfully, subsequent books haven't been like that, but man, it was clearly just political drivel dressed up in a traditional story. And, that's what Disney's been doing. So for Arcade1up, I think, knowing this, if you're paying any attention, again, would they have made this decision to join up with X-Men 97 if Scott B and John D were still in the company? I mean, I think what you're seeing now is the company really is being run by millennials. And so that's their generation. This is what speaks to them. So they're all on board. And maybe it was just, hey, all they saw was X-Men. They don't know enough about X-Men. They say, hey, new X-Men show. We have X-Men game. Let's just latch on and we'll sell lots of X-Men because new X-Men show. I hope they do more research than that, but maybe they don't. Yeah. Zero Redux here wants his adamantium melt metal to my skeleton any day. Video game videos, just like when the comics changed Iceman's sexuality, but he was always trying to compete with Spider-Man for chicks. They can have it. Yeah, I mean, the comics themselves have just been killing themselves with this agenda for a while. It is what it is. I've stopped reading comics, a long time ago, but I still have a lot of friends that work in the industry, and I wish them success. There are good stories out there to be found, but much like Hollywood, that is the industry that you're going to have some pretty far left, some very, very liberal people in that industry, and it's going to drive the content, right? But obviously Stan Lee, like Marvel itself, was always from that perspective, but he always had good, strong moral stories to tell, right? I don't know that modern storytelling has anything about morals at all, at least not morals that build up society, right? At least not build up a Western society, I should say. What are we hating on today? Well, everything. We always hate on everything. Video Game Vegas says they also introduced the female replacements at the end of the last Ant-Man film, Loki, with the female Loki. Are you starting to see the pattern? Yeah. So yeah, again, so it's interesting because Jason Aaron uh, originally wrote the comic with the female Thor, that whole comic story, another Kansas City native. Um, and so it's interesting. I will say, if you haven't seen that Thor, um, you know, you might want to. While there is a female Thor in it, it doesn't end that way. Certainly, they are pushing, right? They are pushing this because somebody pointed out the scene in Endgame where all of the females were together and ran out there, right? They made sure this image on the screen was reminiscent of the original Thor or Avengers scene when they were all up together and charging forward with all females. And somebody said, "Hey, we need all female Avengers," right? And so certainly Disney leaned into that and said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so all the replacements, they've done the Hawkeye replacement is a female. The Ironheart is the female Iron Man. I mean, She-Hulk, which was just the worst garbage ever, and thankfully, was killed and it was unkilled, and now I'm hearing it's killed again. So thankfully, we don't have to suffer through one of those if you're still even watching these things. Um, they did finally, again, rumors. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not. Supposedly, um, what's her name that is Captain Marvel is done in the MCU, that they're not going to renew a movie contract with her. But yeah, I mean, it's clearly suffering because all they're focused on is taking the exact same character and just changing their gender and saying, "Look, look, we've got we're diverse. Look what we're doing. Yeah, we're modern. We're feminists. We're again, you know, nobody complained about Black Widow. Nobody complained about Scarlet Witch. You can make female characters. You don't have to replace the male characters with female to have female characters. But again, Disney isn't creative. Marvel isn't creative. They just take old stuff and shit on it because all they care about is checking a box. They don't care about telling good stories. While the labels, I prefer to view everyone as gamers. Wise words, my friend. The reoccurring theme from X-Men that I always want more of, the creative ways writers can think of to combine different powers, especially in combat. Yeah, and to be fair, I have never really been a huge X-Men fan. I like some of the characters. I like some of the stories. I, read quite a lot of the books, but I was never a big fan. To be quite frank, I don't think when you have these huge team ups, you can tell a good story because there's too many characters going around. Um, that's really why I liked how the MCU did it with being patient and just introducing a character at a time. Now, one of the interesting things, I don't know if you guys have ever really realized this, but the 10 years leading up, from the beginning to the end with Endgame, if you watch, it was very formulaic. Every first movie, the hero fought themselves. So Iron Man fought an evil version of Iron Man. Hulk fought an evil version of Hulk. You just go down the list. They fought themselves throughout the whole thing. Every first movie was them fighting themselves. It was very formulaic. Anytime a new character was introduced, they fought the opposite of themselves. And it was pretty interesting. But what I liked is they had clearly thought everything out. They knew what the stories they were going to tell were going to be. And maybe they got made, maybe they didn't. And they put Easter eggs all over the place. And when you went back and you watched from the beginning and rewatched all those movies, you started seeing, oh, they had that in there. Oh, they had that in there. They were clearly planning all these things out really well. And it was amazing. You can't say that with this series of movies. It's pretty clear they are just reacting. Post Endgame, it is just like, what can we what can we put out? We have a loose plan of all this content that we want to put out there that is, hey, we need this character go, we need this character to go. But we don't really have a coherent plan that we've thought out and interlaced together. I mean, you had, what was it, the Eternals, that this phase was all supposed to be about these gods and all this stuff, but well, Eternals flopped, so then they pivot over to um you know, the Krang as the big villain, and of course, then he does what he does and gets arrested, and there goes Krang. So it's like they just can't execute any of this stuff because they are, I don't know, they're not running it like they did 10 years of Endgame, where they were more focused on storytelling than they were on scoring political points. See there. Let's see. You play arcade games? Yes, cool. Let's be friends. Exactly. Male, female, hail, the sexes are equal with their. Yeah. Pardon the short political rant. I'm tired of identity. Who can't be? Who isn't? Like I am myself very libertarian when it comes to those kinds of issues, and I just do whatever the hell you want. Just don't hurt anybody else. Don't care. I don't know why people get bent out of shape about it. You know, I don't get it either way. I don't understand why either side gets bent out of shape about it. Why do some people feel the need to inject it into everything, and why do other people feel the need to make sure it's not in anything? It just doesn't make any sense. That's what I say. Like, I don't like what they did with Morph, not because they're making Morph non-binary. It's because Morph wasn't non-binary, and they're just trying to check a box. Again, Gen V, non-binary characters, one of the best characters on that show. Like, really well done, becomes critical part of the show. New character, developed well, written well. That's all it takes. And people won't give a crap. But, when you have lazy writing and lazy, creators and you're, just a studio who wants to check boxes, that's what happens. So, is what it is there. When Disney took the novelization of a Luke Skywalker story and then replaced him with Ahsoka in the TV series, I was done. Yeah, quite frankly, I was done before that. To be totally honest, George Lucas killed Star Wars for me. And I know some people are gonna, certainly, my older children's generation will, like, the prequels killed Star Wars for me. And so, J.J. Abrams, who is a director I've always admired, really has great stuff, in my opinion, all the way from, Lost and, whatever else. Cloverfield's one of my all-time favorites, and I know people that's, you either love or hate that movie. But I've liked almost everything J.J. Abrams has done. And so when he did Star Wars, I was very optimistic. I enjoyed the first one because the first one was Star Wars. It was a going back to home, right? They retell the original movie basically with updatedness, and they gave us sights and scenes we've known before. So I was optimistic we were going to get something better than, and then of course, then Mr. What was it? Subvert Expectations comes in and shits on it with the Last Jedi. Seriously, it starts with a prank phone call and a "your mama" joke. Like, if you didn't know it was going to be bad 30 seconds into it, you weren't paying attention. And when J.J. Abrams finally came back, he was handed a shit burger and had to retell the entire story to make it make any sense, because that doofus shat on it in Last Jedi. And so the whole thing was just like, whatever. But I had already said whatever to Star Wars because Lucas's prequel was stupid. Suddenly we have midichlorians. We were told Darth Vader was some badass in the Clone Wars. Instead, he was really nothing in the Clone Wars. Like, all the Jedi died because all the clone troopers just like flipped a switch and then executed all of them. I don't know how clone troopers can kill a bunch of Jedi when Jedi are supposed to all have these senses. It was just, in my book, it was garbage. And it really ruined Star Wars for me until J.J. Abrams came along. And then I was optimistic again. But they ruined that with Last Jedi. I gave Mandalorian a chance. I was pleasantly surprised when they brought Luke into it. It was like, hey, this is interesting. And really, from an AI perspective and deepfakes, I was really interested. I didn't think Luke looked all that great in season 2 finale of Mandalorian, but by God, if you haven't seen the 2 or 3 episodes in Boba Fett that are just about Luke and Baby Yoda, the deep fake in that is perfect. And they got that because a guy was making deep fakes on YouTube of Luke and stuff, and they saw how good he was, and the Disney hired him and made a near perfect Luke in that. And suddenly I was like, hey, you could actually, we're at a point in time, these guys are all still alive. Of course, Carrie Fisher's not, but now we have voice synthesis and everything. We're at a time where Star Wars can go back and do like the Thrawn novels, which are the real sequel trilogy in my mind. Though they take place 5 years after the destruction of the Death Star. That's where Thrawn comes from. That's where Mara Jade comes from. That series was phenomenal. That series is what really, in my opinion, brought Star Wars back to life in the mid 90s. It was like sparking nostalgia in all of us. That got the toy collecting going again. Then Kenner releases that line that all or Hasbro releases Kenner's line again in the mid 90s. And that just explodes the Star Wars toys all over again and goes crazy at that point. And then, of course, then you had the prequel trilogy and it shit it all down again. But, again, Disney ruins everything. I guess is the theme. Disney just forgot how to make good movies. Yeah, I don't think they did. I think they know exactly how to make good movies. They just don't care to because they have another agenda. Again, you want to talk about a weird one. That Red Panda. Like, seriously, if you have kids, young kids, grandkids, whatever, Red Panda is like so strange. If you haven't seen it, it's a story that is a metaphor for getting your period. And when you get your period, you turn into a raging monster. How Disney made this as a movie, I will never understand. And how people haven't flipped their shit about it, I will never understand. Because it is every bad stereotype there is about women and their menstrual cycle turned into a kids animated movie. So weird. PD7's in the house. Skids, take the movie Logan, not politically correct, and it was badass. 100% Skids. That movie was fantastic. And really, in my mind, all the recent X-Men movies, where they did the like 60s, 70s, and 80s, or was it 70s, 80s, and 90s? I thought all those were all very good. I mean, the last one, Dark Phoenix, was kind of weak, but the other two, the first two, were really phenomenal. And of course, the yeah, I mean, I guess it was the Scarlet Witch show that brought in Quicksilver from that movie series, which was awesome. But I'm not referring to that to Thor's girlfriend. I'm talking about the young girl named Love. I guess I must have missed that one. Definitely don't remember that. So you just used to love the old She-Hulk comic. Yeah, and again, they were trying to be funny like the old She-Hulk comic, but let's be realistic, comedy's been pretty dead for the last 5-10 years. The only comedy that's funny is everybody finds offensive these days, so they try to get rid of them. Loved her busting through the fourth wall with all her snark. Yeah, I mean, and obviously they did that in the movie quite a bit, or show, whatever. It just wasn't funny and it wasn't good. It was terrible. The whole show didn't even make sense. Uh, there were moments of that I really enjoyed on She-Hulk. Sadly, not enough of them to get me through the whole season, though. I can only speak for the comics. Hadn't seen the TV show. The TV show was shit. Really terrible storytelling. Uh, really lazy storytelling. You know, you felt like you're always going to get somewhere, and then when they get to the end, they're just like, nope, nope. It's all bullshit. Disney Star Wars Kathleen Kennedy has been on the nose from the beginning with her agenda. Forces female. Yeah, you know, put a what is it? Put a female in it, make her lame and gay. You know, if you haven't seen that South Park, it's pretty funny. You know, Kathleen Kennedy's been a part of Lucasfilm for a long, long time. So, you know, I don't know how much of all this is really her fault versus maybe higher ups telling her to do this stuff. I don't know. You know, I'm sure obviously as the head of Lucasfilm, she has something to say about it, but um you just know that she's been at Lucasfilm for a very, very, very long time, and they weren't doing this crap. So agree. Kennedy is the problem, but so is Iger for letting her. Yep. Um, you are right. Lucas killed Star Wars first with the prequels. Bad writing. Disney beat on its grave with the propaganda writing. Agreed. You were right about Iger. Said, unlike the sequels, the prequels actually had a somewhat consistent plot line projecting the monomyth into the GFFA. So, what I will say, I'll give, and Dave Filoni really is where I heard this from. If you guys don't know, Dave Filoni is the guy that behind Clone Wars, and then it has been the director on The Mandalorian. But he's obviously worked with George Lucas very closely, and he describes Star Wars in a great way, right? That Star Wars, at its core, is a story about fathers, right? It's always been about fathers. And that's something I don't think Disney understands. Hey, P-Dubs, thanks for dropping by. Star Wars, the first Star Wars, right? The original trilogy. Here you have Luke, he's an orphan, he's growing up with his uncle, but not really a strong father figure. Along comes Obi-Wan, who really becomes the father figure for Luke and teaches him how to be a man, how to grow up. And of course, obviously, then you have the connection where he finds out Darth Vader's his father in the end and tries to redeem him. That's the end of the arc. But then you go to the prequels, and the prequels tell the same story, right? Here you have Anakin, another orphan, doesn't have a father around. This time it's mythical. They try to make him like a Jesus thing, or Noah, however you want to look at it. It's silly. But the point is he doesn't have a father. And then he finds Qui-Gon, right? And Qui-Gon takes on this role of Anakin's father. And Anakin looks up to him. He's going to learn him. And then he's killed. And that leaves Obi-Wan to be Anakin's mentor. But Obi-Wan is a kid himself, right? Only a few years older. He's a teenager. And he's more of a brother and friend to Luke. And so who replaces him as the father figure is Palpatine. And obviously Palpatine leads him to the dark side. So we have this series of father-son relationships. This is all the core of what Star Wars is. Then when you get to the prequels, they're just like, screw all that. It's just about Mary Sue, and she has all the powers, and she's stronger than everybody, and we don't need to explain why. She just knows she's a badass. Lightsabers talk to her. She's a super ninja. She can kill everybody. And, you know, project herself around the universe, all this other nonsense. And that's where it goes off the rails because it loses that father-son connection that all these other stories were telling. Well, so Dave Filoni comes in and does Mandalorian, and that's why Mandalorian, I think, is so successful for the first two seasons, is he takes Star Wars back to that father-son relationship. Again, uh, the Mandalorian character is um, an orphan himself. He gets adopted by this society of orphans. They raise him up to be a Mandalorian, and he finds himself with Baby Yoda and being forced to become the father to Baby Yoda. And it was super interesting, right? That now it's taking the father-son relationship, but it's telling it really from the side of the father figure looking back at the son and raising the son up. So it became very interesting. And I thought there was a great opportunity there where, um, knowing what we know about the father figure's influence or lack thereof, turning the son to the dark side or not to the dark side, right? Luke has a strong father figure. It leads him to be a hero and savior of the universe or the galaxy. Anakin doesn't, and he becomes the big villain. And only the son's love saves him in the end from, being completely evil and overthrowing the emperor. And here in Mandalorian, you have the point where Mando thinks it's in Baby Yoda's best interest to give him to Luke, and Luke is going to take him and train him. And you're given all these warnings, right? Ahsoka sees his future, and he's super, Baby Yoda's super scared, and all this other stuff, and he's going to be too easy to turn to the dark side. And you have the father figure being ripped away from him, and then going into to Luke, and Luke really not challenging him, and Luke just being like, "Hey, you're either gonna join me or you're gonna go back," and then they send him back. Like, you can see, like, the meme on the internet of Darth Grogu happening, right? If Mando gets killed in front of Baby Yoda and Baby Yoda doesn't have the father figure anymore, you can see him become this big, badass, evil version of Yoda. I don't think they're gonna go there, but it would be awesome, and it would be in line with what Lucas really was setting out with these father-son relationships. But it seems like what Mandalorian's doing is doing what Disney's doing what they've done with all these Marvel characters. They're getting rid of the Din, I'm gonna say his name wrong, Din Djarin character or whatever, and replacing him with the the female Mandalorian from the Clone Wars cartoon. And it's like, nope, now Mando's just going to be about this chick. It's like, yeah, you were on the verge of a good story, and it looks like you're screwing it all up. Let's see. Jason says she's been working with Spielberg since 1982's ET. That's exactly right. Well, she was also heavily. She was at Lucasfilm. Well, I guess Spielberg, right? She was on Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, which was one of it, in my opinion, it is by far the best Indiana Jones movie. I know some people like Raiders better, but to me, The Last Crusade was a masterpiece. And if you get the backstory of what that was gonna be, oh, Spielberg saved that because George Lucas had really horrible ideas what that Indiana Jones movie should have been. In fact, we may have seen a large part of that when he did this Crystal Skull alien nonsense. She was a better producer. Everybody's saying, "What's up, Dubs?" Uh, yeah, P Dubs, did you get over to uh, what is it, Game On Expo? I was actually thinking about going up there, and then I realized it was going to be like an 18-hour drive, and said, never mind. Because I know that's a good convention out there. So I was interested in going. I'm highly considering going up to the Midwest Gaming Classic, but I'm definitely going to the SoCal Gaming Expo in June. I've had that on my calendar for a while, but I wanted to hit at least one other big gaming convention this year, and I'm really struggling with which one besides local ones. So Video Game Vegas says, yeah, Kennedy may have started out on the light side, but then went full Sith. Let's see here. Obi-Wan got to be babysitter in the Disney Obi-Wan Kenobi series, so there's that. Yeah, of course, again, another thing that screws up all the continuity, right? Darth Vader could have easily killed Obi-Wan there. but didn't, the scary fire. He couldn't walk across the fire, but he lives on a planet of lava, so makes lots of sense. I almost got into the Jedi Academy, but my midi-chlorian count was too low. Indeed. Well, just be glad you're not worshiping the L's and all that other nonsense that Lucas wanted the sequel trilogy to be. In one way, Disney's crappy movie saved us from all that other stuff. But Kevin Clausen says, "Happy Father's Day." Indeed. Cornercade is in the house. That means we got to play one of these.
Let's go.
Let's see. Kevin Clausen to James, you're saying Arcade1up lacks parental guidance. I did. That was what I was saying, actually, Kevin. That they're run by a bunch of millennials right now, and I think some of the criticisms in that they never grew up in an arcade mean they can't appreciate these things. We've talked about that before. I think there's some truth to that, but I also think it's a bit unfair. I think every town has multiple barcades, and the idea that they don't go to those and understand what those are and actually enjoy playing those games, and can't enjoy them like we do, I think just isn't fair. I mean, the retro gaming space, while there's a lot of old timers in it, most of them are in their early 20s. Like, if you go to these conventions, if you go to these things, they're all young guys that are driving retro. They want to go back. Super Mario is the most recognized IP on the planet, more recognized than Mickey Mouse. And they want to go back and they want to play the original games. They want to go back and see where the characters they love today came from. Zelda, Mario, all these things. And as they do that, then they get into the history of video games and arcade games and start touching all these other things, and they fall in love with all these different franchises. And so I don't think it's fair to say that millennials can't appreciate arcade games, but I do think it's fair to say that they don't have a lot of experience and they make stupid decisions because they don't understand what it is they think they appreciate. They don't take the time to truly understand what made those things special for people. And that, I think, is why Arcade1up has a lot of problems, especially around this. Like, Michael B's famous for saying if it doesn't look like the original cab, he's not interested. That's because, that look and feel was important to him, and it's important to a lot of us. And taking a modern property, X-Men 97, and slapping it on a retro game, while it may seem to make sense to somebody that doesn't understand that, it just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. If you were going to do that, at least when they did the Kith Cab, whether you liked it or hated it, they took art from the same era that MVC2 was released, or in fact, the art was older than MVC2, and so it made more sense. It may not have been arcade accurate, but it was nostalgic X-Men art. It made a lot of sense, and I get X-Men 97, you're trying to say, hey, it's in the same style of that 90s cartoon. Yeah. But it's not exactly the same, right? Asses fell off somewhere in there. Cornicade says, the millennials need my help, guys. Get me a job at 1UP. I can help save the community and arcade loves alike. Or lovers, he says. I think we talked enough about lovers today. The Cornercade, I didn't know the home arcade community was imperiled, but give them a call. It couldn't hurt. Yeah, 1UP needs help. We need the titles that we deserve to make our home arcades great again. Are you going to make some hats there? Danny, you really need some red MAGA hats. Make arcades great again. Run around the Midwest Gaming Classic with those on. Be hilarious. It's perilous out there for Video Game Vegas. Certainly, it's certainly.
You lose.
Oh, wrong one, Danny. There you go. So it's certainly, the home arcade space is certainly starving, right? We're having to there's nothing to talk about. We could be talking skee ball, but everybody's already talked about the skee ball. Uh, I voted maybe to both of those. I don't know if you guys went out there and took that survey from New Wave Toys. I think it's cool. I'm glad they're making it. It's awfully big. You know, I don't know what kind of shelf I'm going to have to put that on. It would be sideways, so may or may not end up buying that one. Um, I do think it's interesting that a lot of us didn't really care for the pinball machine because it wasn't playable. Other people were like, "Well, how can it possibly be playable? It's tiny." Um, and then other people were saying, "Well, you could have made it digital." And then some people were saying, "If they made it digital, I wouldn't have bought it because it would ruin it." And then you had some people point to a guy that makes custom digital ones, but then like people like Nostalgia, were like those were like $1,000. There's no way they could do that. So what? But long story short, I find it interesting that here you have Glenn. Shout out to GRS. Uh, Showing these 1/6 scale digital pinball machines that he made with the assistance of another guy, and I don't think they were $1,000, and they were pretty neat looking, pretty cool. And you could have, and he fit it all into the same size scale that New Wave Toys did, and New Wave Toys could have had the physical back glass with the spinning thing, but then put a LCD display so you could actually, pull the thing and shoot the ball just like our at games Legends, just small. Uh, I'd have bought that without even thinking about it. Just saying. And then you have, I don't know if you guys saw that, there was another company 2 days ago announced another micro pinball machine, even smaller than the 1/6 scale. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Uh, yeah, here it is. So you flip on go. So if you see, like, it's basically the size of a credit card, smaller than your cell phone. It's got an actual plunger, you know, um, pretty cool stuff, right? Little handheld with a digital display. Uh, it says the play date. Yeah, so the play date, if you guys don't know, that's that handheld crank. It's black and white. It's like the Game Boy. It's a subscription for service. You get like a new game every month or so. Pretty cool little device. It's really inexpensive. It does remind me of the Playdate quite a bit, like he mentions here. But see, there's the plunger and the little balls. Um, and it says, in the selection at the top of the device, the whole thing feels a little bit like it might work better as a high-tech version of Bop It. Now I know what you're thinking. The answer is no. You wouldn't have to keep filling this thing with metal balls. These will be completely digital games with virtual balls, so there's no chance of one ricocheting wildly. So it has the little balls in there for the sensation, but it is still just a digital pinball game. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Here's like 3 tables. They're bare bones, right? But you got a League of Legends, Valorant, and Overwatch. So 3 big IPs, all the same table as it looks like. Um, Very minor. But this is a little tiny handheld device. There's not going to be a lot going on because you can imagine there's not very much processing power in this little device. But my point being is here you can create a teeny handheld digital version that is very playable, and you can do it for a lot less than $1,000. So I thought it was interesting, given that Glenn is rumored to be working on something with New Wave Toys. That suddenly he's got his he's asking people if they'd be interested in a build a pinball. Um, I don't know what to think there. Is that a shot across the bow at Shiloh and New Wave Toys? Pretty interesting. But um I do agree. Anybody that thought they were going to make a actual mechanical pinball that works and functions at that size, that didn't make any sense. That's not even. I don't know that that would even be possible. Thinking about the little servos and stuff you'd have to make those things flip and move, and that's unrealistic. But I don't think I think most of us thought it would be like a virtual pinball, at least on the main play field, because there's a ton of those out there. Black Hole is already out there. You can play it on the At Games Legends. It's already a virtual pinball game, so it makes sense. Every other one of these things we're buying from New Wave Toys, all the arcade games are all LCD screens. It's not like we've asked them to put real CRTs in there and stuff. So, you know, I don't know. It would have been a million times better if it just had a Raspberry Pi running, you know, running the play field, and then it would be super cool if they still had the mechanical spinning, back glass. That would have been really fun. But I mean, I get it. They couldn't make that happen, but and their device, it looks cool. If you're a pinball collector, I'd be all over it. It's not playable, but it looks cool, sounds cool. It just wasn't for me. If it was playable, I'd have bought it without even thinking about it. Um, and I'm really actually really pretty interested in the things Glenn's working on. If he releases that, I might actually buy one. Because I think it's pretty cool. That's something you could put on your desk at, work shit or desk shit as P-Dubs calls it. That people I think would be really want to mess with and play with. Because who doesn't really at least casually like pinball? Um, by the way, if you guys didn't grab your rugs, they were back in stock today at New Wave Toys. The older one is $12.99, the 20% off discount with Dually, or however you say that, Dually. And then a new one, a double-sized one that is clearly for the pinball machine, is up there for $30. I know those don't last long, so they may be gone already. That was their big announcement at was it 2? Oh, it's 1:00 Pacific. So, pretty sure 2 of them. So I voted maybe. Yeah, yeah, I like that it was like if we so I voted maybe to both of them, but I like that they were like, if we bundled it in 3, would you buy it? So it's not a 2 bundle, it's a 3 bundle. But I thought that was interesting. They haven't touched it since they released the first batch, so no emulation issues fixed. Thor KC, I voted for it as well. Would love to have a mini skee ball. I do think it's cool. I just, it's I don't know where I'd put it. I'm struggling to find where to just put the 1/6 scale ones at this point. Um, uh, Quality in the right places has rarely been Arcade1up's concern. So sad. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're trying to make these things as inexpensive as possible. Um, you know, you win some, you lose some there. I think as long as they make it accurate and cheap enough, most people are fine with upgrading some of the other garbage on there. Um, though we would prefer not to, right? We prefer they just buy the better controls and things like that. Uh, Thor says, I already have a micro virtual pinball machine for free on here. It's the iPhone. Indeed. New Wave Toys. You're singing my song. I pre-ordered the Black Hole. These small balls better come along with a swallowing disclaimer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can get the ball out of the New Wave Toys without like smashing it, right? There's only one ball and it just goes up and down that one track. The black light carpets from Numbskull are nice and huge, but they aren't nearly as reactive as Dirty Donnie's work. What I want to know is how Dirty Donnie got his name. I like those cool puzzle working pinball machines. I just won't have the patience to put them together. They have a Star Wars theme as well. Cool. Yeah, I have the Roker wooden puzzle mech pinball, but I have not had the courage to attempt the 10-hour build. Uh, that's awesome. They look so cool. If someone sold these pre-built, I'd be interested if the price is right. Grab your rugs. Indeed. Some of us may actually need one. Wow, man. Look really bald in this light. Not that bald. Um, check out the New Wave Toys arcade carpet. Yep, if it hasn't sold out, I bought 5 of them. I measured. I think that's all I need to cover my 9 cabs if I turn them sideways. But I did not buy the big one because I did not buy the black hole. But I buy the second round of pinball if they actually make it a digital screen. Any new cabs on your radar? And then to Danny, Arcade1up has proven they can make a quality cab. Atari Star Wars, but I think they're more concerned with light up coin doors and tin signs. So I'll say I think Arcade1up has made several quality cabs. Obviously, Star Wars is phenomenal. Um, I think the HS5 is just awesome. I think the Pac-Man XL is really, really good. I like Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair to most people my age is amazing because it was the only arcade game when you walked into an arcade that looked like a cartoon and played like a cartoon. And in the era of Pac-Man graphics, that was like, hey, I can play a Saturday morning cartoon. That is insane. And so that's why it's nostalgia, I think, for a lot of us, because it is a simplistic, it's a timing game, but so amazing. And Arcade1up did a fantastic job with that. Now I realize they screwed up the sync on the sound at a later stage, but I'll never get there, so it doesn't matter. I'll never see it. So unless suddenly I find a lot more time than I have to sit and practice that thing. But um I've always loved Dragon's Lair. I own it on like 100 different times. I even have a DVD Dragon's Lair that you could play when DVDs first came out. You could it was just a regular DVD disc, so it was based probably just almost identical to how you played it on the laser disc. And you just use your DVD controller when it lit up. You push the directions or hit the OK button to do the sword. So I've bought that thing so many times. There's a Game Boy version that is an actual port of the arcade game, so it plays almost identical to the arcade game on Game Boy. It's pretty crazy. Um, I'll just keep buying that thing again and again on however they make it. Got the New Wave Toys ones. I think it's a great fun game, and it to me was the epitome of what we always imagined arcade games and video games could be, and we're finally in an era where that's reality, right? Last week, if I know most people didn't watch it, but last week we played the first dungeon of Myth Force, which is a roguelike dungeon crawler, and it is in the style of like He-Man cartoons, those Saturday morning cartoons. It is the art style in it is awesome. The gameplay is good. I love it. I've been talking to a few people. I think we're going to start doing a Tuesday night stream where we just play that for a while. Um, so uh, you know, it's a great indie game. It's like $30. You can get it on PS5, Steam, all different. If you like dungeon crawlers, if you like loot games, and you like those 80s Saturday morning cartoons, you'll enjoy it. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And the intro is awesome. It says, my idea is that maybe it will scratch the itch for a real pinball machine and the maintenance involved. We'll see whenever I get around to putting it together. Maybe. Dragon's Lair is awesome, but I played it as a kid. Thor KC, that's why I was interested, like the feel of mechanics in a pinball. I hope you get to make a video if you get it built. I have the DVD Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, and that's see, awesome. Did you also watch the cartoon that was on back in the day? PD7 needs to buy it. Capcom made the Game Boy version of Dragon's Lair. So good. There you go. Love my Game Boy Light requires 4 AA batteries. And Thor KC, I ordered one of the Diwali pads. You guys have Speaking of Game Boys, have one of these. Uh, I've been playing with mine since the new adapter boards came out, and I've been thinking of doing a video on this, but haven't decided. So, I did the open FPG stuff and loaded all the cores for different systems. And you notice on there, like when you do that, you get the arcade stuff. And as you go into arcades, you can see you've got, I feel like nostalgia with all this handheld stuff. I need to cut my fingernails there. You got all these like arcade games. These are obviously ROMs, but they're running on FPGA cores, so they run amazing. And some of them are the actual, like as you dig into the type, right? Let me find one. Somehow yeah, so if you go here, right, they're the different arcade systems, and you can browse through that way. So I know P-Dubs out there is a big Taito, so that's like kind of the loading screen. As you get there, then you can select the different ROMs for that actual arcade board, right? So you can, and then I picked a New Zealand one for crying out loud. But here's like the Sega System 16, all those games. Fantasy Zone, Major League, Quartet, Shinobi. But I mean, they run amazing. So if I go back here and go to the Capcom stuff, right? Get to right. So I'll let it boot up here. This is Street Fighter Alpha 3 on here, and it is shit plays like amazing. No cart, no nothing. All FPGA. So I have an idea of what I want to do with this thing. I just don't know what else I need. I already know what I'm going to need to connect this up, but I want to turn, maybe somebody will beat me to it. But I want to turn the Unico Nova Blast into a dock for this, and then use the actual controls of the Unico and the FPGA from this. Now I know I could do it cheaper using a Mister or whatever, but I want to actually have this so that you can dock it on the outside of the Unico and then have all these arcade games playing on the Unico with the controls and everything, running the FPGA off the analog pocket. So that's the mod I want to do with the Unico. I just got to get the damn thing. And I'm not so sure I want to pay $1,200 just to play with it. But I really, really want to do that because I think it would be super cool. But if you guys have one of these, there's a one-click install that installs all these cores. Takes maybe 10 minutes. You download it, you run it on your SD card, it loads all this stuff up. Then if you have ROMs, you should legally own the ROM before you put it on there. It does that. But all these arcade games come in that one-click bundle. It's pretty awesome. And I'm telling you, they play great. They play phenomenal. Like I can play, it sounds stupid, but I can play some of those games 100 times better on that device than I do when I'm playing them on other systems. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the smaller screen, the FPGA side of it, taking all the lag out of it. I don't know, but I can play way better on that little device than I can on some of these other things. So picked up the 1/6 scale Victor Von Doom. Is that a Hot Toys one? I have a bunch of the Avengers ones. And I enjoyed the DL cartoon as well. Yep, Dragon's Lair cartoon was awesome. Great times. I was going to dock my Steam Deck to one of my arcade machines, but never got around to it. Yeah, like I said, that's why I wanna do I think the Unico Nova Blast will be stellar for that, right? Because it's designed to be for arcades. It has the HDMI hookup. Now, I know natively you won't be able to just take the dock from, um, the, Analog Pocket and make it work on the Unico Nova Blast, because the dock doesn't support that form screen format. But I found a device that will do that, that will actually keep it and is very low latency. It's basically the size of a USB stick that will do that, that'll allow it to work on there natively. I just need to figure out the control side of it. I don't know if you can just plug the USB right into the dock and it will work, or if I need a converter to turn it into Bluetooth to make it work with um, the uh, the Analog Pocket, but I'm excited to try it. So if Unico wants to send me one as a test unit so I can make a video for doing that, I'll do it. And then it's better to hate everything than to love everything. I agree. What 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 is hate but love? Hate it hard enough, right? You go around all the way to the other end. So I think that's it. You guys waiting on anything special you hope Arcade1up announces in the next few months? I know Danny put his list out there. Um, we've seen 19K Fox really hammering the Smash TV, which you know I may be alone. I just don't remember Smash TV ever in the arcade. I don't. To me, Smash TV is a Super Nintendo game. I remember the commercials for Super Nintendo all the time. I don't ever remember seeing Smash TV, the arcade game. I think all the arcades were dead around here before Smash TV came out, and you played arcades at 7-Elevens and Circle K's, and I don't remember ever seeing Smash TV around that time frame. Um, so, you know, certainly when we had arcades like Fun Factory and some of the local ones, Smash TV definitely wasn't a thing back then. And so to me, there's zero nostalgia in that game, but it seems like everybody's really fired up for it. But you know, there's so many other games that were much more nostalgic that I would love to see, but I'll take anything at this point, anything new. Even a stupid Golden Tee. Even though they've already done 2 versions. Uh, if it has at least online play and is truly XL, and better have a trackball I can smash, because I love, you know, playing Golden Tee in the bars is nostalgic for me. And, we really got revved up when we hit that trackball, and I don't have confidence Arcade1up's gonna make a trackball that can withstand hardcore play on that thing. But it's from Toy Biz, only $24.99 used. Oh, that's interesting. And I haven't found the chutzpah to spend. I got you. So it's the chutzpah. I clearly can't read Yiddish on the screen very well. It's a jalapeno, right? Yeah. So you're talking about the it's basically the 12-inch Toy Biz figures from the Marvel X-Men figures from the 90s. That's cool. It's funny because I dug out a bunch of those. I had a bunch of toys stashed away and decided to flip through them, and I found all my old Final Fantasy 7 figures, my old Resident Evil figures, and of course pulled out all those 90s Toy Biz in fact, they were the what is it on the Marvel line? It was after Secret Wars, but it was before all those X-Men one, and I can't think of what it is. It was about the same time. They were exactly the same as like the Superpowers figures on the DC side, where they were very stiff looking figures. But I also found my X-Men versus Street Fighter figures, so I put those out around my MVC2 cab. Those were pretty cool because there's an Akuma, and of course, Cyclops and Wolverine, and of course Ken and Ryu and um, whatever. So anyway, I dug out a bunch of old action figures because I found I was out doing antique stores and found the Rhino from Mask. Any Mask fans in the house? Did you watch Mask on Saturday morning cartoons? So I found the complete Rhino with both figures, helmets, everything, and so then that got me thinking about toys again. So I pulled out a bunch of old action figures and put them back out. Video Gamevist says, I think I got my final Arcade1up. Don't know if I'll get any more. My home arcade, so many of my favorites and can pretty much play them all. I hope that the community gets the cabs they want. Oh, we had Smash TV in the grocery store across the street from my high school. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever even seen it in person, not even in any barcades I've been to. If it is, it just never drew my attention. Um, Golden Tee with actual online. Yep, that's what I'm hoping for, Kevin. I want Golden Tee with online play so I can play with people. That's why Golden Tee is fun. It's a social game. It is not a one player. I mean, you can play it one player, but you play it at bars with a bunch of other people. It needs to have online play, period. Or it's a no-go for me, which is why I don't have any of the other two. One, the XL that they did release doesn't have a good screen, but man, it's got to have online play. There's no reason to have it without online play. I was so jonesing for Robotron, Hydro Thunder, Akari Warriors, House of the Dead. Yeah, they're never going to do House of the Dead. Nobody even has the source code for that game. Like, I know we all want it, but they would literally have to take the rebuilt version, which isn't as good, or a ROM, and I don't think they're legally going to be able to do a ROM. And without the source code, you can't go back and get it to run on their hardware. So, unfortunately, House of the Dead is just never going to happen, unfortunately. But they certainly could do one of the other ones, like Area 51, stuff like that. Akari Warriors is huge for me. I would love to see that again. For some reason, like, I think Video Game Vegas and me might be the only people that ever talk about Akari Warriors. I mean, Glenn released the stick, but that doesn't seem to be a big drive to get the game. Robotron, I'd buy every one of those you listed there. They're all great games, and I'd buy every one before I bought a Smash TV. So I'd get Smash TV with a Robotron. Kevgret, Twisted Gaming TV, and Rexer love their commercial Golden Tees. Would you ever consider one of? No, they cost too damn much. The commercial ones are great, but they're $4,000 to $6,000. They sell them in several places here in town, like in Kansas City. You can actually go pick them up. Same dealers that sell like Stearns here all sell the Golden Tees. Truthfully, that the newer ones aren't nostalgic for me. I like before they went to, what was the one that when they first added, was it just called Golden Tee Online? I cannot remember for the life of me. Before they started that was like the first time they added network play for all the different Golden Tees to connect all the bars. Is about when I stopped playing. It's about when I stopped hanging out at bars. And so the newer ones would be cool, but they're just not. I just don't care enough to spend that kind of money. But if you give me one of the older ones before they went online, but still made it online so we could all play it, that one is nostalgic for me, and I would love it. You throw on, there's two other games. You can have Super Strike Bowling on there and Bags. I know Bags is not as popular. Most people, I don't ever even hear people talk about Bags. Bags is just cornhole. But it was fun as hell, right? And they, also by the same people. And so you can put those three games on one Golden Tee cab. I don't need like 7 Golden Tees. Give me one Golden Tee, Bags, and Super Strike Bowling, and you have a great freaking cab. Hey Biggie, how was the convention? Did you make it out today? I'm probably done. Also, I'd like to grab Smash TV, so I still have more room. So I'm not done. I still don't have a damn Tron. I'm holding out hope that they'll release that Tron in a deluxe or an XL. I mean, I will take just a deluxe. Just get the deluxe out. Sell me a Tron without a breaking stick. I need to replace my stupid Atari 50th with an Atari cab that actually looks good because I and doesn't have the joystick up against the edge because I just don't even like playing that thing. And so I don't have a good Atari one. Um, and I missed the Sega ones. I still could get the Golden Axe, but I don't know that I want more beat 'em ups, to be quite frank. Really, the hacked Simpsons cures the itch for beat 'em ups for me. But there's a ton more I want. I don't have MVSX yet, and largely because I don't like how they did the cab. If they come out with that as a big one, like they've been rumored, a new one, I will buy it. If it looks more like the real thing, I want it. In fact, I saw Mad Little Pixel did a great video on a real MVS from China. They're taking the MVS boards and they're putting them in the Neo Geo AES console form factor. So they're making like clear smoke and traditional, but they put the MVS boards in it. So it'll play the original MVS carts. And then they have all the adapters you would want on the back to output it to pretty much everything, not HDMI, but old school stuff. Uses the real components, you can connect up the real controllers, and it comes with like a generic one. And it's like $250 on AliExpress. I mean, like I had a Neo Geo AES and I sold it in my when I got divorced a long time ago. And I had gotten that as a kid from CompUSA for $200. It was the gold system with 2 controllers and a game. And it's the biggest mistake I ever made, but I needed money, so I sold the damn thing. And I look every single day on eBay at Neo Geo AESs trying to get back the one I had, and either everybody's selling the Japanese version just chipped, or they're MVSs that don't have the look and they asking way too much for them, or they're trying to sell the AES console itself beat to hell and they're asking like two grand or 3 grand. Not going to do that. But 250, 260 for an MVS that looks like the original, that I'll do. Like, because it's cheap enough and it's the real arcade hardware. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm in on that because it's not connected to the internet, so I don't have to worry about that it's loaded with Chinese spyware or something. Mad Little Pixel took the thing apart. It's the actual boards. So there's really not a lot of risk of cheap components like breaking it or anything else. So to me, it seems very low risk. Now it could have fake chips on it or something like that, but again, doesn't have network connectivity. So unless they're gonna spy on the TV I have it connected to, I don't know what they can do with it. So I just don't know that you can get a better deal than that on actual real hardware, and then it looks like the traditional console. Of course, it won't play the arcade games. You still have to get the MVS versions of games, but so what? To me, that's worth it. Biggie had a great time, lots of footage. Can't wait to see it. I actually, I mentioned it earlier when P Dubs was lurking that I was really thinking. I was coming home from work yesterday, and for some reason I had it in my head that it was about a 10-hour drive. And I don't know why, because I just made that drive last summer. But I forgot that you stop in Albuquerque isn't as close to Phoenix as I was thinking in my head. And it was 12 hours to Albuquerque. So but I thought I could make the drive. I was just going to go home and say, hey, wife, pack up the kids, let's go. And we'll make it there tonight. And then I'll be there in the morning. But then I looked and it's like, oh no, it's an 18.5 hour drive. It's like, yeah, forget it. Too late. But yeah, I certainly wasn't going to fly there, but, yeah, I was thinking about heading down because I always hear good things about that show. So interested to see what you come back with. I saw Mr. Rightway was there posting a lot of pics. He was out here, I want to say 2.5 years ago, at our con out here. He's a good dude. Tron was my very first, and once I got Star Wars, I was essentially done with three-quarter scale. Everything after that is decorations more than anything. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Um, yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It's I'll tell you, my kids really love this stuff. My 2 and 4 year olds, they always want to come down and play in the arcade. Um, and that's what I love. I love sharing that with them. I wish I had this for my older kids. I wish this was a thing, right? I think, my son, all my kids really, especially my oldest daughter and my oldest son, um, they definitely inherited my love of video games, but I started them too early on PlayStation and Xbox. And so they were always playing all these modern games. So my two youngest ones, I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore because I don't like the games that are coming out. There are good games that, don't get me wrong, that come out on modern consoles. They're not the same. They're big, bloated. Gameplay is, they ship games that are broken. The gameplay is kind of repetitive. Nothing innovative is coming out. They all take 10, 20, 40 hours to play. People just aren't, the indie game makers are, but in generally, the big studios just aren't making simple, fun games anymore. Everything has to be this huge production, and now everybody's getting fired because they do that, right? All these studios are laying everybody off. I just wanted to go back, and so and go. Started my retro collection up again. I've introduced them to the simpler NES games and things like that. I want them playing the simple stuff, and the home arcade really feeds into that. So they're not seeing big fancy video games straight out. I don't want them to really experience that until they're older. I realize at some point that they'll experience that with their friends, but I want them to appreciate the classics while they're really young so they can have an appreciation of the complexity of newer games and really understand um, where all this came from and why, in my opinion, these lower tech games are actually more fun. I mean, they're like I said, they're great new games, but these are more fun and can build different kinds of memories with people than just jumping on the internet and playing all these other games. Like, playing these things where you had to play in person, where you had to do couch co-op, where you had to do this stuff. It's just different. It's a socialization of gaming that is different than today's. And that's not taking bad about that. I've made tons of friends through games like Destiny and stuff that I play many other games with that I would never have made without that stuff. But they live all over the country, right? It's just totally different. The relationships you build when you have people close to you that you can sit down with and sit on the couch and play a co-op and talk about and then go do something else and then go hunt for games together to go discover new games like we all did as kids, right? And that's what I want for my kids. And so far, they seem to love it. They come down here, they always want to play games, and while they aren't old enough to be good at any of them, they all try and they want to play all of them, and I just get a kick out of it. So that's why I want more in my arcade. I want to find ones that are interesting to them. I've bought on the pinball machines, on the At Games ones. I have the Dr. Seuss tables, not because I really care about that stuff, but for my kids, I have the Charlie Brown table and boy, I don't think they'll ever be able to play that one. That one's super hard. Uh, like that is a ball drainer. But you know, I got those for them to enjoy more than myself. But um, yeah, so I'll buy a ton more. If they keep releasing more, I'll keep buying them as long as they are decent games and look good, right? I'm not going to buy an X-Men 97. One, I already have MVC2, and maybe if I didn't, I might. To be honest, I don't know how I would feel about it. You can't really see the side art, and X-Men 97 isn't a game, so I don't understand why that's the marquee, but whatever. A lot of good retro game collecting, trading, selling going on today at Game On. The early days of gaming were so limited by the hardware that developers had no choice but to focus on making gameplay fun. Couldn't agree more. The one thing that's great about the retro classics is you don't have to worry about mappy sexuality. I don't know, man. Miss Pac-Man was chasing Pac-Man all over the place. Uh, the one great thing about being part of this community is if you don't have a particular cab, you can live vicariously through others. That's exactly right. I love seeing the stuff, and I love seeing the people like the stuff Sheila did with modding the HS5, the stuff that 19K Fox has done with that, like, is making me want to go out and get the MK2 Deluxe just to turn that into like um I'm drawing a blank. My brain just shut off. And there was a particular game I wanted to do, and now I can't remember what it was. um, but I want to do, I know P Dubs is doing the 1942, but I would love to do a 1943. I would, love to do a Ghost and Goblins. Maybe I'll rip the PCB out of my Capcom Legacy and throw it into an HS5 so I can do a Ghost and Goblins. There's a bunch that I would love to do in those cooler looking cabs. I just don't want like 20 HS5s in here because that'll be lame. But one arcade form factor. But if Arcade1up isn't gonna do it, we're gonna have to do it. But alrighty. Well, I've been blabbering now for like 2 hours. So I'm gonna probably shut it down, and I'm gonna thank everybody again for dropping by. I don't know here, we got the poll, of course, basically 3/4 of you think Arcade1up is incompetent, not cursed. A surprisingly high number of you think they're playing 4D chess. I hope you're right, but you're not. But I hope you're right. And of course, Zero Redux asked where Scott Bacharach was, and he's there. He's lurking. And I heard on Glenn's show the rumor is John D's working for a wrestling company. That's interesting. If that's true, if that's the rumor going around. John D's working in the wrestling industry. Maybe they're just talking smack, or very, very interesting. But I'll hold out hope that they get the band back together, right? I hear Scott's a free agent, John D's a free agent. The guys that designed the original cabs at Think Up, they're free agents. They could start Arcade1up. Make the cabs that they weren't allowed to make before. Make the nostalgia cabs. I do think it's weird if he's working at. I mean, hey, he's got to take a job he's got to take, right? Like, man's got to work, man's got to feed his family. But I know we're all hoping that suddenly he comes back and saves the space. I don't. Hopefully, maybe he'll work side gig, come out with something. Certainly has the connections to do it. But who knows? April's getting here soon. Is there some big wrestling pay-per-view coming up in April? Maybe John D's going to be wrestling on the mat. John D is managing Logan Paul. Who knows? Maybe when is that fight? Maybe you're going to find out he's the new John D King. He's John Don King, and he's going to fix the fight when it goes to decision. But yeah, so interesting times ahead. Hope New Wave Toys makes their announcement someday. Like, I know they're still waiting for something to happen, but dear Lord, we need competition in this space, and we need it sadly yesterday. Arcade1up is never going to do anything for us until there's competition. They're just going to keep slow playing this stuff. One cab and a quarter, when last year, over the course of the year, They released 13 new products last year. We have one in 4 months. So, you know, yeah. I mean, I just don't understand what the strategy is with them right now. But, you know, maybe maybe they look at it like all those cabs really came out in the second half of the year, so why do we need to announce them all early? And they haven't been out long enough to do a bunch of re-releases, though they've done that every year in the past. But that maybe is what's gotten them in some trouble with inventory levels. So maybe they're not. They're clearly still in the damn. They're still going balls to the wall with the Infinity game table. There was put something out today, a QVC pushing the Infinity game table. So like I don't know. Go watch a QVC show they were pumping of where they're selling it. They're going to be spotlighting and selling the Infinity game board. Like that seems to be all they care about. They threw together this because they had, you know, Cyrus, he likes to do the movie tie-ins and stuff to do that. But man, they spent more money for that. They had to have spent more money for that license to slap it on that cab. Just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that's all I have. I'm going to quit rambling on and on and on and on like I've been doing. Talked about 100 million different things. And so until next time, have fun.